So Death Mountain, Hell
Both of
Hollow.
those are disturbing for different reasons. Yeah, also,
Devil's
can we
Nest.
stop naming things like death or
Well,
hell
hold on.
or devils?
Let's take it in a different direction here, Jen. What about this? How about you stop bringing your 4-year-old children to places called Devil's Nest or Death Canyon or You're Going to Die Here Mountain? How you guys feel? You feel good?
I'm ready to hear Papa Nate tell us a little bedtime story.
Yeah,
Great. Fantastic.
I'm ready for your story.
Welcome back, Mystery Seekers, to another exhilarating episode of the Mystery Society, where we're going to be talking about the missing 411 cases. We got a few to get through today. We got 3 of them. These actually have a lot to do with the last cases that we talked about on the last episode of the Mystery Society that Jen talked about. Episode 2.
Titled Jen's first hosting episode of season 2.
Or the Bennington Triangle, whichever one you like.
Into the Forest.
Triangle. Great. They're very similar in the way. Nope.
What we're doing?
No. Oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
Are we gonna
great.
get copyright
Did you like that
strikes
one?
from the Illuminati?
We already have them. These cases are very similar to your last cases because they take place and do kind of the same things but in different forests, and there's a little bit of some weird differences, but very similar cases. First case we're going to be talking about today is Alfred Beal Hart's. Thank
That
you.
was so crazy. How did you throw your voice like that?
That was incredible.
I'm impressed.
What a day. He went missing on July 2nd, 1938, so this is a bit of an older story.
Okay.
He was at Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado, and he was attending the national park with his parents and 10 older siblings to fish for the Independence Day weekend.
How
How old is he?
He's 4 years old.
Oh,
This is
Yeah,
1930.
1938, and he had 10 older siblings.
a lot of kids.
Yes.
Easy to lose track.
Exactly.
I wouldn't know.
In fact, while they were all walking on a trail, they lost sight of him for a split second. It was one of those things where the family's walking, they turn, Alfred's right behind him, and then they turn back and they walk for like a few more steps, they turn around, Alfred's gone. As soon as they notice that he's gone, they start searching. All 11, 12 people who were there. So his 10 siblings, mom and dad, start searching everywhere. They figure that in that really short amount of time, he couldn't have gotten too far away. Unfortunately, they were not able to find him, so they had to contact the park rangers and get the authorities involved. The authorities believe that Alfred fell into a nearby river and had drowned. The place that they were walking wasn't really that close to the river. It wasn't like... There was some running water, but it wasn't like the mouth of the river or anything like that. It wasn't like the big part of the river where somebody could drown. It was just running water, and then probably a mile down was the legitimate part of the river. They dammed and dragged the river for 6 miles in an attempt to find his body, but they found no trace of him whatsoever. So they didn't get any clues from this. They didn't find the body. They're pretty much still at square one. Authorities bring in some bloodhounds, and the bloodhounds are able to get Alfred's scent, and they track him 500 feet uphill before they mysteriously stopped and lied down, and they refused to go any further. I
What?
didn't know that much about bloodhounds, and I looked up if that just meant they lost the scent or something like that. No. There is no reason why a bloodhound should just stop and lie down and refuse to go any further.
And it was more than one dog?
It was 2 dogs, yeah. They had at least 2
my
dogs that
God.
did this. Went up, they'd be like, and then would stop and lay down. A couple gave a
what?
testimony. A couple of people, 2 people who were together. They were hiking 6 miles away and 3,000 feet higher in elevation. They reported that they heard a cry, and they looked up and they saw a small boy resembling Alfred standing on top of a high ridge of a treacherous area called the Devil's Nest. And I found mixed reports about what exactly happened after that. Some people are saying that the boy was yanked backwards out of sight. And then others are saying that he simply just turned around and walked.
Funny that you bring that up because one of my next stories is eerily similar to this.
Really?
Like, disturbingly similar.
Interesting. So, yeah, if you ask me, I don't really know. He could have been yanked back or he could have walked away. I don't really think that matters. When these 2 hikers got back to town that day, that's when they saw the newspapers with Alfred's face on it, and they were like, oh my god, that's the kid we saw today. We got to call somebody. So they called the authorities immediately. Park rangers, search and rescue people all go to that area. And it takes them a full day to climb to where the kid ended up, to where Alfred ended up being.
I was about to ask why those two hikers didn't kind of go investigate. Because if you see a kid and they're alone, and you see something like if they had gotten dragged backwards, I feel like I'd be like, I need to check that out. That is bad.
In the report that they gave, they mentioned they assumed he was just like him and his parents had climbed up there and he had gotten too close to the edge and his parents were like, hey, don't walk over there. But in order to get up there, he would have needed climbing gear. They had full professional climbing gear. It still took them a full day to get to the top of the nest. The Devil's Nest, it was called.
How much did he weigh?
How much did he weigh?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I just didn't know if there was anything that could have just very easily like carried him up there. Like
Yeah,
a bear or an eagle even.
There's
like,
been a
if
lot of
he's small
speculation about a bear, but people don't understand why a bear would drag its victim 6 miles and 3,000 feet up.
That's no, it's a long way, but I did like just read. I thought that bears will like drag their prey elsewhere to eat it or something like that.
Yeah, which is why I bring it up. It's a lot of people say that it's very possible a bear did do it, but they also say that a bear would never go that far. Or that high.
Right.
After that, after they search the area for the first time, they bring in 150 volunteers and they do an extensive 10-day search of the area. They don't find anything. There's no clues, there's no sign of the body, nothing at all. Unfortunately, that's the last of the information about this case. Alfred's parents believe that he was definitely abducted and definitely still alive somewhere. The next story, which is very similar, is a girl named Catherine Van Elst, and she has a very similar story to Alfred's. She was 8 years old when she was abducted from the Devil's Den State Park in Arkansas, which is another horrifying name for a place.
What the heck? Stop bringing kids to death traps is maybe my only advice.
Yeah.
She was taken in 1946, or rather she vanished in 1946, when her family was on a camping trip in the state park. It seems that she was playing with her brothers outside of her camp. There's, again, mixed testimony here. This is from a newspaper article that I found. This is what they printed in that era. A lot of people nowadays on the internet are saying that, some people are saying that it was at nighttime when her parents were asleep and she just wandered off. Some people were saying that her parents were just hanging out by the tents. It was daytime. She wasn't really doing anything in particular and just walked away. But a first-hand source that I have says that she was playing with her brothers and then just kind of wandered away. Her parents couldn't find her. Nobody could find her. They called the authorities. They searched the woods for 6 full days when she was found 30 miles away and 600 feet higher than where she vanished from. She was found alive.
Wait, how far?
She was 30 miles away and 600 feet higher in elevation.
What?
And this was after 6 days they found her alive.
Was she okay?
A search party was searching the general area and they saw a cave, and when they were searching they were yelling her name, calling Catherine, and she walked out of the cave and in a stoic monotone voice said, "Here I am."
I have goosebumps. That is terrifying.
So
that's like the beginning of a horror movie.
I do remember.
Maybe the most disturbing part, that she was so calm. I mean, you think a child being missing in the woods away from their parents or anyone familiar for over a week or just under a week, that they would be traumatized. Like, they'd be crying and in a horrible shape.
Not even a little bit. She was completely fine. She was completely calm the entire time.
I would give her away. That's not your actual daughter.
She was interviewed about what happened in the local newspaper. Now, a lot of the sources I found on the internet do not even mention this account.
Yeah,
and
why?
I read this whole thing. Not a single person is like, and here's what she said. I was like, hey, y'all. Yeah. Nobody was like, hey, where did you go? A lot of people don't seem to be posting this information anywhere, but yeah, she explained what happened, sort of. She left a lot of details out, and she admitted there was a lot of things that she didn't remember about what happened. She's a kid. Yeah, she's a kid. I'm sure she was in massive shock. Whatever it happened.
And you have a bunch of people prodding at you and asking you questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she from what I can take away from all the information I have, she didn't remember a lot about how she actually vanished necessarily. But here's what the newspaper wrote. This is verbatim. The child had been missing since Monday, when she lost her way returning from a creek to their park cabin. I just couldn't find it, she said. She spent her first night laying in the grass and subsequent nights in caves, eating wild berries and drinking water from pools. Porter Chaddock of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, was the first from a party to reach her after a calm "Here I am" answered one of their shouts. Her first words to him were "Thank you for being found." She was barefoot and clad in a play suit, like a swimsuit basically. Her body covered with insect bites. Other than her small comments above, she says that she doesn't remember much detail about the events that took place while she was lost. So that's all the information on that second case. Now, an investigator in a online forum called Vistoramic Journeys has actually hiked to the locations that Catherine and Alfred were missing from.
Oh, wow.
And he's got all these photos. He walked, he did a bunch of 360 degree
I think
photos.
I've seen those.
Yeah, you can kind of follow the trail and everything. And
That's
what
really
he
cool.
surmised about being in those areas was what they had in common were there were some large boulders that would be great for some kind of a predator, whether that be a person or an animal, to hide behind. And there's also some form of running water that provides a lot of cover for noise. So you wouldn't hear somebody run up, grab the kid, and run out, which is how it could have happened so quickly. Because it's not too hard to believe that if a kid fell far enough behind, anybody could walk up and grab them.
Right.
Yeah.
But for it to be that quick with both of the kids, where they look back, gone, is incredible.
I feel like out of all of the things that she could have possibly remembered, maybe being abducted would be one of them.
You would think, but
Yeah.
that would
Rather
also...
than just being like, I ate berries and slept in a cave.
But you would think that the brain, if it was going to block anything out, would block out the most traumatic part.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
So, the fact that she doesn't remember any part of it is interesting, because you would think that you would remember the whole part, the whole...
Yeah.
But if she was abducted, none of the rest of it makes sense.
Yeah.
She was taken up to a cave by her abductor and
Left there?
fed her berries and made her drink out of puddles. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody were to abduct her, they'd probably take her to their home, or even if they were to take her up to a cave or something, they'd probably have
Would have harmed
supplies. Probably would have harmed her
Yeah.
unless she immediately got away. And if she did, then
How did that kid get away from a full-grown
Yeah.
adult in the
Yeah.
woods?
yeah.
And that's just one bit of speculation. This is also along the same lines of commenters saying that there's some kind of a connection with both locations having devil in their title.
Right.
So
Yeah,
a lot of
that's
people
strange.
are making speculation that there's something in the woods, whatever that may be.
It's the devil.
Yeah.
It could be cultish.
Now, all of this ties in with the final case, which is one of the most highly publicized cases that led to one of the largest national park searches ever. It was 6-year-old Dennis Martin, who went missing in the Smoky Mountain National Park. It was such a large search that even the Green Berets were called in to look for him.
Wow, that's extreme.
Yeah. Dennis had been participating in a prank war where he and his siblings would jump out of the bushes and try to scare each other. So people have, from that, taken that may have been how he got lost, as he was hiding somewhere trying to jump out and scare one of his friends, and he just lost his way back or something to that effect. Dennis was wearing bright clothing, so his parents were easily able to track him through the woods the entire time until he suddenly was gone completely. So they had a few situations where he would be far away from them, but they would still be like, well, there he is, he's wearing that bright jacket. But then it was like they looked at him, looked back, looked again, he was gone. Just like the rest of these cases. This case has helped some of the commenters that I've seen back up their case of some kind of predator tracking the kids, as later that day a nearby group heard a sickening scream from the forest, and moments later saw a rough-looking man moving quickly through the woods near where the sound came from. And all of these are talked about in more detail in a book called Missing 411, which is what these cases are named after. It's written by a man named David Paulides, I think is how you say his last name. Something. And he's kind of leading the hunt to be creating some kind of connection between all of these cases. And I think he talks about a lot more cases, actually.
He does. It's very inclusive.
Yeah. And I'm sure he's got more books, too. He's just a big author who talks a lot about search and rescue missions in forests and missing people in forests and things like that. Very interesting to read about. So, yeah, I mean, that's all the information on these 3 cases. And it's just kind of interesting to see, you know, the more we talk about any of these cases, the more and more you can kind of draw conclusions between them, where even these cases that are in 3 completely different areas have connections within themselves, but also connections with your case.
Yep.
From last week.
That's so weird because like I pulled up 2 different articles on Dennis, and one of them said he was hiding with his brothers to jump out and scare his dad, and his brothers jumped out and he never did, and then they lost him. And then the other one said he was hiding and to jump out and scare his brothers. And I was like, those are 2 completely different stories. Yeah. Like, this is just a game of telephone. So like at this point I don't know what I'm hearing.
Yeah, facts like that, I mean, when it's literally the basis is him hiding, brothers, and he disappears, trying to keep those completely straight, whether it was like him hiding and scaring his brothers or him and his brothers hiding, it's almost all the same.
Yeah.
You know, it's just people literally taking those facts and rearranging them slightly, going from, you know, writer to writer, or, you know, someone talking about it on YouTube or whatever. I feel like some of those facts are kind of easy to mix up.
Yeah.
But it also does totally change the way with like how you talk about a case and like the facts that you're looking into further, because if it was him and his brothers, like, why was he the only one that disappeared?
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. I think it'd be definitely more interesting if he did go missing while he was next to his brothers about to jump out and scare his dad, but I'm not sure if that was the case. So let's say for Alfred and Dennis, do you guys think it's more likely that they were taken, or more likely that they just wandered into the woods and got lost and were never found?
At first glance, I would say that it seems like it was more likely that they were taken. But then when you look,
I feel like Alfred just wandered off.
Well, at first, like, that's my instinct is like it doesn't make sense for all these kids to just be there 1 second and the next second they're not, and when they search they cannot find them for the life of them. That sounds more like somebody took them away. Until you have, what's her name?
Catherine?
Until you have Catherine, who did apparently by herself get 6 miles away and way high up and survived on her own.
And never said otherwise.
And then your kid, wait.
She went 30 miles away, by the way. Catherine.
30 miles away by herself. And then the first kid was only
Alfred.
Alfred was spotted 6 miles.
Spotted, possibly. And at that point, I didn't want to believe that. I was like, no way he got that far. But when Catherine did that all on her own, it sounds way more likely that they all just kind of walked too far and got lost and got scared and quickened up and tried to find stuff faster and got even more lost.
Yeah, because I mean, if there are kids like alone in the woods, they're probably gonna run.
Yeah.
Like if they get nervous, they're gonna start like running, or if they hear an animal noise, they're gonna start running.
Yeah.
They have no idea what direction they're going.
Yeah.
And a kid in the woods would be so easy to miss.
They all just go missing in places that it's really easy to get missing. And really the moral of the story at the end of the day is you should watch your kids.
Yep.
In the forest. Alright guys, thanks for watching this episode of Mystery Society and hanging out with us as we discuss the missing 411 cases. Don't forget to tune in next week when Taylor is going to tell you about the mysterious disappearance of the Jameson family. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.